Hey everyone, welcome to a Week 9 edition of the West Coast Best Coast Football Show. Here, your take inside of college football from a West Coast perspective. Big weekend of college football coming up. From the West Coast teams, like this has been, outside of Oregon, there hasn't been a whole lot of great things from the former Pac-12 schools. I said it last week, I'll say it this week. If BYU counted in my 12 teams, I would put them at number 2 right behind Oregon State. BYU is clearly the second best team on the West Coast right now. Like maybe you can make an argument for BYU as well, so maybe BYU's up there, but BYU's not going to be a Pac-12 team. Boise State will be in a couple of seasons, so we'll talk about that. So first off, let's talk about the rankings. Oregon is now the number 1 team in the country. First time in over a decade that has happened. I think the days of when Marcus Mariota was throwing the football at Autzen Stadium, so this is crazy. And Oregon's got a big game this weekend against Illinois, who a top 25 matchup, big CBS 12:30 Pacific game, and then they go to Ann Arbor to take on Michigan, a game that I will be at, my first rodeo to the Big House. Sorry to all my family members that I'm going to enemy territory. It's work obligations, so but I'm excited for that. Oregon is just a phenomenal team. Dylan Gabriel seems to have rounded into the quarterback in the form that we expected him. This offense is clicking. The defense is doing really good. It'll be a test against Illinois. They should win the game, but anything's possible in this college football season. A lot of big-time teams have been clipped early on, and Oregon is now really the last one standing near the top of the rankings, undefeated and number 1 overall. So we'll just start there. We'll actually go from 1 to 12 in my 12 pack. I've Oregon number 1. What else can be said? They're the number 1 team in all the country. Dan Lanning has done an amazing job. It's now just going to be a test of, can he win more of these big games that he hasn't won in his first 2 seasons on the job? Can he go to the Big House and win? Can he win this Saturday, this weekend against Illinois? Can they get to the finish line undefeated and go play for a Big Ten championship? That's going to be interesting and something to monitor. Then this 12 pack gets really hard for me to rank. At number 2, I have Washington State. They only have 1 loss. It's to Boise State. And John Mateer has been playing really well. They go to San Diego State in a really late game on Saturday. Washington State's in a really good position to potentially be a 1-loss team down the stretch of the year. They got to play Oregon State at the end of the year. But, yeah, man, the Cougs, man, the one bad blemish, I mean, who hasn't been run over by Ashton Jeanty, one of the Heisman frontrunners, who really has been able to stop him in Boise State this season. Oregon couldn't even stop him, and Oregon won by 3 points against Boise early in the season. So Washington State at 2. I got Colorado at 3. Colorado rebounds, gets a nice win against Arizona this past week. As much as I don't like him, man, Coach Prime is doing an unbelievable job with this group. They're gonna get to a bowl eligibility. They got a really interesting game against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's really overachieved in the Big 12, but Colorado's gonna get to bowl eligibility, and 8 to 9 wins is not off the table for this team. They're not gonna go to the playoff. They're not gonna, win the Big 12, but this team has been really impressive to me, especially the way they play defense. Shador has been impressive. And the reality is, it's almost hurt Travis Hunter's Heisman chances because this team has found ways to win without him, or without him being a significant factor. So that's the other part of this. So I got Colorado at 3. I've got Utah. I've got Arizona State at 4 because I initially had Utah at 4, but Arizona State beat Utah. Utah's now got a quarterback situation. Cam Rising, unfortunately, his season and maybe his college career is over. He could come back for an 8th season if he wanted to. We'll see what he thinks of himself. But again, just another bad break for Utah. We'll see what Isaac Wilson's made of. Utah also had shuffling with their offensive staff. Andy Ludwig, their longtime offensive coordinator, stepped down, so they've got differences there. So I've got Utah at 5, Arizona State at 4. They lose at Cincinnati. It was a lot because of the kicking issues and Kenny Dillingham, being like he was fired up in his press conference and then he immediately apologized on social media and then his media availability. So Oregon 1, Washington State 2, Colorado 3, Arizona State 4, Utah 5, USC at 6. Holy shit, man. This USC team, and I've seen a lot of people in the media try to defend this USC team and defend Lincoln Riley. Listen, this is a case of like, hey, they gave us false expectations early on in the Lincoln Riley era with that massive season off the bat with Caleb Williams winning the Heisman in year 1. Year 2 was a complete disappointment. This year they changed defensive coordinators. They get that big win against LSU. LSU's now up to number 8 in the country. USC has now lost 3 in a row. All games they should have won. All 4 of their losses they should have won, and they're all, small gap, small, under 7-point losses. And a lot of them are because of coaching. And Lincoln Riley, because of the money that he has made and why he was brought in, is going to get a break. But to blame this on a young team is kind of stupid, in my opinion. This is USC, man. And the expectations, and I said it on last week's recap show, what is different about this team 3 years in with Lincoln Riley than to what it was at the end of the Clay Helton era? There's not a whole lot. They are bad situationally. They are bad in clutch situations. Under no circumstances should you lose at Maryland when you're up by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. You should never lose that game. You should never lose at Minnesota. You should never lose at Michigan when they can't gain more than 50 yards passing. You should not lose at home to Penn State when you're up by 14 points against them at home. You can't do that. So I understand that some people are going to just rush to defend Lincoln Riley saying, hey, it's a rebuilding year. They've got a first-year starting quarterback, a new defensive coordinator. But you can't have it both ways. You beat LSU to start the season. The expectations are there, and you should be expecting to do more in the Big Ten. Yes, maybe we kind of overrated this USC team a little bit, but when your losses are within that margin of error inside of 7 points, and all those games that I listed to you that you should have won, this team should be sitting here at 7-0 right now. But they're not. They're 3-4. And I've got them at 6 in my rankings. I've got Washington behind them at 7. I just think USC is a more talented team. They're going to play each other next week, which is going to be a very interesting former Pac-12 battle now in the Big Ten. So I got Washington at 7. They finally actually got blown away by somebody. Washington had a similar road as USC, kind of, beating themselves in a lot of these games. So, but I do like the direction of where Washington is going. They've got a really interesting game and an honest to God, a chance to maybe pull an upset against Indiana this week in an early game. We'll see how Washington does coming off the bye. I've got Arizona at 8. This team's been really disappointing, but we kind of should have seen it coming. They lost a lot of key players in the portal to Washington and elsewhere. New coach. As much as I like Brent Brennan, this is a tough spot for him to come in. New conference, and a new head coach. So that was a struggle. And it just hasn't worked out for them in the Big 12. They've lost a ton of big games. They get blown away by Colorado. And it's just like I really don't know what to expect from this team. They get West Virginia this week, a game that they should win at home, but who's to say? Oregon State, they lose a disappointer against UNLV. They're at 9. I like their running game. Their defense has been all right. A tough spot for Trent Bray, but they're playing a lot of the top-tier teams. And then they lost to Nevada. Nevada's not a good team. So Oregon State's kind of disappointing. Cal has been really disappointing. They're my number 10 team in this 12-pack. They've lost so many games that they should have won, and they shouldn't have lost that game to NC State. NC State has been a massive disappointment. You blow that game at home, and you can't get a 28-yard field goal at the end of that game. So I've got Cal at 10. I've got UCLA at 11. Moving out of the basement, they go on the road all the way to Piscataway and beat Rutgers. I mean, Rutgers has been on the downtrend. Still, that is a really impressive win. Ethan Garbers was outstanding in that game. Maybe there's some optimism coming for UCLA moving forward. They don't play this week, but, man, I was really impressed with the Bruins. So they get out of the cellar, and Stanford's down at 12. Yes, their biggest win of the season was against Syracuse. It hasn't looked pretty. They got blown away by SMU. They get Wake, a game that maybe they can win, but man, this Stanford team's really just not as talented. So that's the 12 pack. And then let's run through these games here in week 9. We'll start off with maybe the best game of the entire weekend, which doesn't feature a former Pac-12 team. It features a future Pac-12 team. Number 17, Boise State is in Las Vegas to take on UNLV. Two of the biggest stories on the West Coast this year. Two one-loss teams. This could really decide who is the Group of 5 participant in the college football playoff. This is a massive game. Heisman front runner Ashton Jeanty. I've sang that guy's praises. I expect him to have a huge game in this game. Coming off of the bye, Boise State should win this game, but this is going to be a lot of fun to watch. UNLV is a really good team. They haven't missed Matthew Sluka at all. Haj Malik Williams has been really good, and Ricky White, their star wide receiver has been really impressive as well. So I think Boise State should win this game, but UNLV will make it a lot of fun. Really, the undercard, really, but it's not really the undercard because it's going to follow in, the meeting of sporting events here in LA between New York, New Jersey area teams against LA teams because the Dodgers are playing the Yankees in the World Series out here in LA. But Rutgers at USC in Big Ten After Dark. It's an 8 p.m. local kick from the Coliseum tonight, or if you're watching this, or on Friday night, depending on when you are watching this. I'm recording this on Friday right before the game. USC should win this game. Rutgers is faltering. They don't really have a great quarterback. Really, their best player is Kyle Monungai, their running back. USC's defense has done a really good job. I think USC should win this game at home against Rutgers. Late kick game, but anything can happen. After dark, Pac-12 after dark, Big Ten after dark, anything can happen. One of the big games this weekend is game day is going to be there. My guys, Yogi Roth, Guy Haberman, and Rhett Lewis are calling the game for Big Ten Network. Washington's at number 13, Indiana. Washington's got a chance here, and it's not just because Curtis Rourke, the quarterback for Indiana, is out for this game. Washington's really solid, and they got a week to, kind of be infuriated over that blowout loss to Iowa. I think Indiana is going to win this game, but this is going to be interesting, and I would not be surprised if Washington won. Jonah Coleman has been great running the ball for Washington. Will Rogers, low-key, has been pretty solid at quarterback for the Huskies, but I think Indiana is going to win this game and stay undefeated. Illinois is at number 1, so Illinois number 20 in the country, at number 1, Oregon. Illinois gets that old-school Big Ten win over Michigan last week. Now they got to go to Autzen and play the number 1 Ducks, who are now freshly number 1 in the country. Dan Lanning asked about being number 1 in the country, said he didn't care. That's the perfect answer for any coach. I think Oregon's going to win this game. I think Oregon is just hitting on all cylinders. It's going to be interesting to see how the group handles, the players handle being number 1 in the country. But Dan Lanning, being the coach he is, he'll motivate them. I think they'll be fine. I think Oregon wins this game. BYU goes to UCF. I'm including them in here, even though it's a West Coast team, and this is a West Coast themed football show, so I feel like I need to be doing BYU. BYU's had a really good season. It's going to be interesting to see how they're able to navigate the rest of this Big 12 schedule. But they go to UCF. UCF really underachieving this season under Gus Malzahn. I think BYU should win this game. They've been really impressive. Kalani Sitake, a lot of people are saying this reminds them of that 2020 year where they had to makeshift their whole schedule and they almost went undefeated with Zach Wilson. We'll see if BYU can get to the end here and potentially, play for a Big 12 championship and potentially go to the playoff. Wake Forest at Stanford. I'm not going to give this game too much time. These are two really bad teams. Stanford is not very good. I'll say Stanford wins this game because at some point the bleeding has got to stop. They're at home. That's not saying much. A lot of people don't show up to this game. Wake Forest is not very good. Stanford should win this game. Oregon State at Cal. Hey, old school Pac-12 game, but these two teams are now in different conferences. Cal is a ACC team, and Oregon State is now a Pac-12 team. So I've got Cal winning this game. They've just been so close in so many games. At some point, the bleeding has got to stop for them. So I'll take Cal. West Virginia at Arizona. I'll take the Wildcats to win that game over the Mountaineers. West Virginia's kind of been disappointing, kind of middle of the road in the Big 12. A lot of people thought that maybe they might do a lot better this year under Neil Brown. But I get Arizona there. Utah goes to Houston. Obviously, the Cam Rising stuff now, him out for the season is unfortunate. Houston is awful. This is not a good team. Willie Fritz really inherited a rebuilding situation there at Houston, so I'll take Utah to win that game. Cincinnati at Colorado late at night is going to be an interesting game because Cincinnati under Scott Satterfield, they get the big win against Arizona State last week. Now they got to go to Boulder at a late night game. I'll take the Buffs to win this game, and they get to bowl eligibility. You know what? As much as I do not like a lot of what they stand for, Coach Prime has really been impressive this year. Shador has been impressive. Travis Hunter. Their defense has really stood up in big spots. This will be a big opportunity for them to really stake their claim to be in the second tier of Big 12 teams. But I've been really impressed with Colorado. They've kind of defied the odds after, it seemed like every single week early on in the season I was shitting on them. But I got to give credit where credit is due. Colorado's been impressive. And then Washington State goes to San Diego State in a really late kick. The Cougs should win this game. John Mateer should have another big game. San Diego State's not very good out of the Mountain West. So that is the West Coast, Best Coast football show for Week 9. We'll have recaps after it. And I look forward to talking with a lot of you fans if you want to get at me in the comments for shitting on your team or whatever. If you're a USC fan and you agree with me about all the stuff going on with Lincoln Riley. Man, if USC loses to Rutgers, that's where you sound the alarm bells. Because especially if that would be 4 in a row, that's just inexcusable. So we'll see how everything goes. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hit that subscribe button below. OT Mike Sports, Off the Mic 28 on Twitter. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.